Buongiorno Mondo, and welcome back to 15 with Fosca, the podcast, and to part 2 of my conversation with Riccardo Bruscagli about Dante. I'd like to begin directly with a quote from Riccardo. Dante addresses the core of our humanity, and his message is, your life matters. Take care of it. Your life matters. So stay right where you are to find out more about Dante's universal message, and join us as we dig deeper into the poet's characters, speak more about the PBS film Dante Inferno to Paradise, and discuss how much today's readers and viewers stand to learn from the great Florentine poet and his masterpiece. Grazie mille e buon ascolto.
I have a question. I want to go back to the film a second because you sort of casually mentioned that it's been received well in the U.S. and I think we need to talk a little more about it. It's a hugely ambitious project. Yeah. It was on PBS. It's a big deal. Yeah. I think the idea of wanting to bring Dante closer to so many people is really important because of everything we've talked about so far. So what have I know you said you haven't been able to follow too closely what the reactions have been, but what have some of the, tell me how people are reacting.
Yeah, the thing that from the very beginning has impressed me in those reactions is that the reactions are very emotional. In the sense that so many people say, oh, I didn't know almost anything about Dante, now I know so much more, which is what we wanted.
Exactly.
And what we anticipated. It was to present Dante not at the level of a graduate course, but at the level of the scientifically rigorous, but, as I said already, affable way of communicating. But I think that what I did not expect is this emotional impact.
Yeah.
So many people are moved by the movie, probably because of his visual quality, probably because they did not expect Dante being such a complex and moving human being. Probably because we were able to convey the depth of his, let's say, interest or his approach to life. So it is, in general, complex reaction. But as I said, we kind of expected the first one. Okay, I didn't know so much about that. I was intimidated by Dante.
Right.
Now I feel much more comfortable. I understood more or less what's going on in this complicated political life of Florence in those days, his relation to that politics, his relation to the church, etc. But I didn't expect to be so touched and moved by the sheer humanity of his experience. But when you say humanity, is also naturally a humanity which was expressed in such an incredible language. And then at this point, naturally, the inevitable point of translating Dante and the poetry of Dante it's inevitable. Also because Dante, in the Convivio, one of his works, is very clear about in his opinion, impossibility of translating poetry. He says in a very explicit way that words which are linked with legame mosaico, which means with a sort of a musical acoustic link, are not possible to translate. Because when you translate, you lose that music.
Exactly, you lose the musicality.
Okay, so Dante shouldn't be translated, but fortunately, this kind of idea has been has been put aside and ignored because Dante has been translated in all the the languages of the world. There is at the library of the Società Dantesca here in Florence a whole wall of shelves with all the translation of the Divine Comedy in Armenian, in Yiddish, in all the language. And naturally, yes, you lose. You lose something. How can you translate properly the last verse of the fifth canto after the famous episode of Francesca, e caddi come corpo morto cade, with this kind of domino effect of the C, the K, e caddi come corpo morto cade.
Wow.
Et je tombais comme tombe un cadavre.
No. I mean, no.
No.
We love French,
Pero, I always say, okay, raise your hands, those who read Anna Karenina in Russian. Raise your hand, those who even read Proust in French. Come on. So
It's true.
The translation is really una buona azione. Una buona azione. A good deed. It's really remarkable, and we have to be always not only respectful but grateful to the people who translate any type of text into our own language, and so truly broadens our knowledge of the world. And in the case of Dante, in the space especially of the English translation of Dante, this is a special case.
Oh yeah.
Because there are so many.
I know.
And every year there is another one.
It's crazy.
Every year there is another one. And especially American ones. I have from the venerable one by Longfellow.
Yeah.
And which is, as we know, an episode on itself of the fortune, I say, of Dante in the Western culture. And we used several translations in our movie Wandelbaum, but also Hollander, and all of them have their merits and have their limits. I in general prefer the translations in verse and not in prose.
Yeah.
But naturally, sometimes to translate in verse forces the translator into be redundant sometimes, so. But anyway, this is one of the. But even Dante in translation, sometimes I think that. Yes, lost in translation, but sometimes also found in translation, because the translation forces you to understand even deeper the significance and the beauty of the original.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have a favorite character in the Commedia? That's a tough question, right?
Yeah, I have many.
Okay, you can name a few.
Certainly, in Inferno. Among the most famous ones, Brunetto,
of course,
the homosexual master of Dante, Farinata, the great politician, and Farinata and Cavalcante, who are put together in the same circle, actually in the same tomb. In the Purgatory, I absolutely am a fan of both Manfred and Bonconte. And if you remember the movie, we had the fortune of, I think, a sensational Manfred, Andrew Sanders, the actor, who performed Manfred in a really, really very, very deeply moving way, this character who everybody thinks is in hell because it has been excommunicated by the church.
Right.
So praying for him is useless. And instead, orribil furono I peccati miei. So the propaganda of the church was right. I mean, his sins were ghastly.
Really bad.
Yeah. Ghastly. But one moment is enough to save your soul. And the other one is Bonconte, who dies in the Battle of Campaldino and runs away from the battlefield, forato nella gola, with a hole in his throat, and bloody the soil, and arrives at the banks of a stream of water, the Archiano, and faints and dies. But before dying, nel nome di Maria finì. He is able, in the last moment of his life, just to ask for mercy. And he maybe not even murmurs, maybe just the name of Mary on his lips. And this is enough. Because the angel comes and the devil comes to fight over his soul. And the angel conquers the soul of Bonconte, which irritates the devil. Tutte le porti di costui l'eterno. You are taking away the eternal part of the soul of this guy. Per una lacrimetta che mi toglie. I always have to be very emphatic with my students. Per una lacrimetta che mi toglie, because the little small tears
right, that little
is
tear,
the difference between damnation and salvation.
Yeah.
One little lacrimetta is enough. Actually, more than once some students objected to this, you know. Kind of point of Catholic theology. That is a little too easy. It's a little too easy.
One little tear.
Yeah, but this is what never happened with those charming, damned souls of Inferno.
Yeah.
They never shed that lagrimetta.
That one little
which
tear.
Means they never had the idea that they were actually wrong.
Yeah.
They were very satisfied with their lives. They never realized, they never had a moment of realization that, no, what I'm doing is really wrong.
I feel like there are a lot of lessons there, Riccardo.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there are a lot of people right now that would be in Inferno, those people who don't shed that one little tear, that show no sign of remorse, that show no self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Just extreme narcissism.
Yeah. And that's why in Inferno, they are charming, Francesca and all the rest, because they are naturally so stuck in what they were and what they are and what they will be for the rest of eternity.
That's it.
Farinata is stuck in the politics of Florence. You are in hell. What do you care?
Exactly.
And instead, he's stuck in the very moment of his life and in the very attitude of his morals, let's say.
Exactly.
Purgatory, as we have said, is totally different. I mean, people went through that famous lacrimetta, and now they are digesting, let's say, their past.
Yeah.
They have to really ruminate among their various sins, wrongs, I mean, defects, and accept change.
Yeah.
And accept change. And then in Paradise, there is one that I really love. There are so many, but there is naturally Picarda, which is this incredible story of domestic violence and of also this. This is also interesting, I think, from an historic point of view, because we have this idea of nunneries, of being a nun. I think especially if you are an Italian and you went through the Italian schools and you read the Promessi Sposi and the history of the Monaca di Monza.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have this idea of the nunnery and being forced into being a nun as a really cruel constriction. In the story of Picarda, you have a girl who came from the horrible family, let's face it, of the Donati, Corso Donati, and the black party in Florence really violent people. And so she tries, Piccarda was the sister of Corso Donati. So she is from her childhood immersed in this alpha male type of culture. And she tries to avoid it, to save herself from the constriction of that family. And she chooses the convent, and she chooses to become a Clarissa, a follower of St. Clare, as an oasis of peace, an oasis also of, in a way, female independence.
Yeah, and maybe even empowerment. I don't know. It seems to me like that as well. No, her story.
Yeah. And instead, the family and her brother, in particular, practically abducts her. I mean, takes her out of the convent and forces her into a non-desired marriage. And Dio si sa qual poi mia vita fusi, she says, and then only God knows what my life was. And so this is a very now she's at peace with everything, with herself, and she is in heaven. She wasn't able to cultivate the type of Christian life that she would have liked. But it was, enough to be saved.
Exactly.
And then there is another one instead, which is kind of the opposite of Piccarda, which was instead Cunizza da Romano, another sister of another horrible man. Ezzolino da Romano, the famous tyrant, and she had been quite a loose woman, and who in her late years repented, and she repented. Now she's saved. She's in the heaven. She appears to Dante in the heaven of Venus among the 11 spirits. But what she says is so, in a way, unpredictable. When she says, "I look back to my past and non mi noia."
I love that, though.
Yeah, and I don't bother. I don't bother. I mean, she said, and I know that the common people wouldn't understand my attitude, but I don't care. I always love this grand lady who, had misbehaved quite openly and had so many lovers, and she was, but so what? I mean, I was what I was.
Exactly.
And
look where I am now.
Yeah, I repented in time.
Exactly.
So, which means that everybody in Dante's Paradise takes with themselves really their own identity.
Yeah.
This is also the peculiar aspect of the Christian Catholic paradise, that you don't annul your individuality in this embrace, in this diving into the light of God.
Yeah.
You remain what you were. You are there in that light the way you had decided to be.
That's an incredible sort of perspective on it, because it gives us a lot of agency, in our journeys. And I love that. Yeah. And I think that's part of the relatability, if we want to go back to that.
Somebody says in the movie that, don't be wrong. I mean, it's not that Inferno is a torture chamber organized by a sadistic God. This is what you made. You made your own Inferno. Yeah. You decided to be what you wanted to be, a homicide. Which, by the way, does not, this is the other aspect that we emphasized, I think, a lot, and it was crucial. Another of the many crucial things that you have to remember and assimilate when you read that, I mean, you are in Inferno, and you have been sometimes a really despicable human being.
Yeah.
But that does not exhaust your individuality.
Exactly.
And this explains, in my opinion, this is a very debatable point of Dantismo, of contemporary Dantismo. But that, I think, explains and, in a way, even justifies the pity and compassion that Dante feels so many times for so many damn souls,
Absolutely.
which had disturbed so many readers. Because so many readers, especially contemporary readers, found this pity of Dante wrong, or a symptom of moral weakness on his part, something really that shouldn't be there. In my opinion, it must be there for many reasons, but especially because the damned souls in Inferno are not aliens, are not so remote from what we are.
Exactly.
What we are.
Exactly.
And because it would be very easy to, remove them from us and even from Dante as a voyager throughout Inferno. If everybody in Inferno was, ugly and unpleasant. No, they are ugly. They are ugly and unpleasant characters.
But then they're also
very.
Francesca
is
other,
a very charming lady,
right.
And Brunetto is an affectionate scholar and master and professor,
right.
almost a father-like figure. And Farinata is an imposing character, and Ugolino is heartbreaking protagonist of a story. And so this, let's say, margin of humanity must, is also necessary not to make evil something easily ignored, like something that has nothing to do with ourselves. No, it has a lot to do with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I always say, borrowing from Truman Capote, no criminal can be reduced to the cold blood of his or her crimes. Yeah. This is also the lesson. And this is also the experience of Dante, the moral experience of Dante as a pilgrim throughout hell, because he must feel the danger for himself to fall into those situations. Because those people are not so, Dante, these people are not so different from what you are.
Exactly.
And so the proximity and the empathy with those people is also a didactic result of his infernal experience. The relationship with the spirits of purgatory and paradise naturally is totally different. I mean, in purgatory is the realm of friendship, and paradise is the realm of almost identification with each other. But even Inferno cannot be divided from its problematic humanity.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting when you were talking about sort of reader response, the response of a contemporary reader. And I think it is important that you underscored that it's not so far away from all of us, right? The evil, I think Dante becomes more human because he is empathetic, because he does, right, see redeeming qualities, if you will, in the people who were in hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but for many readers, I think that because it is so gory, and because sometimes the bad is so bad, right, it's hard for readers to put themselves
to reconciliate with this idea. Well, we had wonderful actors in the movie.
Oh yeah.
I think playing the damned ones, and I think the most difficult in a way was naturally Francesca. First of all, because Francesca is so famous.
everyone loves Francesca. Paolo and Francesca. It's like one of the most everyone. You don't want them to be. You get it. You know, we've all been.
But there we found also, I think, a solution, because as you remember, sometimes the movie shows Dante in the situation of the narrative.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
So, but sometimes he is visited by his ghosts, by the creatures of his imagination in his own studio. So this is the solution that we chose for Francesca. Francesca is not shown in the midst of the hurricane,
right,
which is their punishment in the fifth canto of the Inferno. Francesca kind of materializes herself in Dante's studio. I mean, she appears almost at his desk.
Yeah.
So it's a much more sedate kind of environment. It's an interpretation which doesn't want to mimic the narrative situation. But I think she conveyed very well the sense of such a difficult character, disenchantment, not penitence, because the people in hell don't repent.
No.
Don't repent. So she naturally utters the famous lines about the laws of courtly love, and she's still absorbed in those words and those, principles. But I think the actress also conveyed a certain sense of detachment. I'm saying these words. These are the words which kind of seduce me. I don't know if I still believe them totally.
Right. But this is what they are.
No, right? This is what they are.
So it's hard to believe because I really would love to talk to you forever, but we're coming to the end of our conversation.
Okay.
So I want to ask a few key questions as we close. One is, will we be able to see the film in Italy at any point soon or other places in the world? Because I know it's out there. It's been out on PBS for quite some time, but it's out and streaming and stuff. But can we see it here in Europe, in Italy?
Well, this is in the capable hands of PBS International.
Okay.
PBS International should be able to sell, let's say, the movie to various stations around the world.
Okay.
And the PBS deals only with public stations, which is a limitation in a way, but anyway, it's a noble thing to do.
Right.
And so I don't know at what point the negotiation.
Okay. But we'll
frankly.
keep.
But
we'll keep everyone posted. We'll have all the links.
Yeah, because
it's
a pity actually
notes.
that even in the English non-American world, at this point the movie is not.
That's why I was asking.
Available.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I hope it's going to be available soon, at
I'm
least
sure
in the
it will.
UK, Australia, and those.
Canada. Oh, I don't know where it's available. And then, is there another Dante project that you would like to do, or that's in the works? Is there anything? I know Inferno, Purgatorio, e Paradiso. It's big enough. But is there something you think that a future project that you have in mind, or something that you would love to work on?
There might be not a new version of the movie, but edited, retouched version of the movie, because as you imagine, it's so much ended up on, can you say, on the editing floor?
Yes,
yes.
I can imagine.
But this, I don't know, maybe there will be a new presentation of the movie around Easter time 2025.
Oh, okay.
Then I always wanted to continue the experience that I had with the Marescotti, with the Ivano Marescotti, and put together something, going maybe even canto by canto, or at least at first working on the, let's say, eminent cantos of the Divine Comedy, using his records and my explanation, the collaboration of fantastic especially some audio effects that we used for the edition of the comedy that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? I mean, Dante never sees.
I was going to say, I feel like Dante has given us material for eternity.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Also because as all classics, I mean, this is the famous effect of all classics, they change under our very eyes. They don't change, but we change, and we discover through new eyes always new things also in those texts. Yeah. Only real classics do that. The let's say ephemeral successes don't do that. You go back to certain texts after 10 years, 20 years, and they are dated. They are really sorely dated.
You're right.
The classics have this power of morphing, of changing themselves. And as I said, they obviously don't change, but they change in our perception.
Exactly.
And this is this inexhausted emotion of our context with them.
Yeah. I want to ask you a final question, even though I would like to end on that note, but I did have this little question out of curiosity, my little curiosity. Is there a place in Florence that for you really evokes Dante?
Oh, yeah. Which is not the fake house of Dante, which is nice.
It's simpatico. It's fine.
Which is nice.
It's a nice museum.
No, it's the baptistry.
Yeah.
The baptistry. The baptistry is so central in the idea that Dante had of his own city. He quotes baptistry a few times in a very touching way. This is where he wanted to go back, to be crowned poet in the place where he was baptized, and also I think is one of the most beautiful in itself monuments of Florence. But when he puts these words in the discourse of his ancestor Cacciaguida in the 15th of Paradise, Cacciaguida is his ancestor, and he kind of remembers Florence the way Florence used to be, and nel vostro antico battisteo insieme fui cristiano e Cacciaguida. This idea that life in Florence started in the baptistry when one would assume, you get his identity as a citizen, and at the same time as a Christian. Yeah. And this is so absolutely seminal and central in Dante's perception of his citizenship and his identity. And that's why exile is such a wound. Yeah, because so it's not just that you leave a place that which is so dear to you. Is like losing this ancestral, visceral link to a place. If you remember at the beginning of the Purgatory, Timothy Verdon talks about the central importance of the baptistry in the lives of all Florentine citizens, and Dante doesn't make an exception for Dante. Yeah. This is the place. Also because let me also remember this. In the movie, there is a moment when you see the actually current view of Florence, and somebody, which happens to be myself, says, okay, this is Florence today. In order to imagine Florence in Dante's times, you have to mentally erase the dome, the bell tower, the cathedral, Santa Croce, everything else. Only the octagon, the white octagon of the baptistry must remain in your, let's say, imagination. And this is what Dante could see, and this is what Dante felt in his own heart.
Grazie mille, Riccardo. This has been such a great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I'm here thinking about all the ways that I can have you back just to hear you recite the cantos.
Okay.
Should we do it?
Okay.
Maybe. We'll see if
maybe.
we'll do a series. No, but seriously, I'm so grateful to you. I think the movie for me was really important to see because I do think that, just as you were saying earlier, going back to Dante, going back to the classics at various points in our lives, really do show us very different things. And I think there's no better time than right now to go back to Dante.
Sure.
I really think we all have a lot to learn from him. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
And I hope that we'll be able to do it again sometime soon.
Okay.
Grazie mille. Thank you once again for tuning in to this week's episode of 15 with Fosca and for continuing to do so. Grazie mille e alla prossima volta.